Hello, this is the second half of session 5 of our course, Jesus Christ Superstar. This session is entitled From Bacteria to Beethoven, Jesus, Evolutionary Biology and Intelligent Design. And again, this is part 2. In our previous session, we examined the challenge represented by origin of life issues. How did life begin on Earth? Where did we come from? How do we account for the mesmerizing complexity and diversity of living things? So here are the topics for today's session. There are 4. What is intelligent design? What do we mean when we talk about intelligent design? And then we're going to look at the dazzling complexity of the cell, followed by a look at molecular machines, nanotechnology within the cell. And then we're going to be looking ahead to the beginning. So first of all, what is intelligent design? Well, we're going to be looking at a video by Stephen Meyer. And Stephen Meyer is a leading proponent of intelligent design. And here's a little bit of information about him. He has a PhD, philosophy of science from Cambridge University. He's a key figure in the intelligent design movement. And he is the director of the Discovery Institute of Science and Culture in Seattle. And here are his publications, books, Signature in the Cell, which was a groundbreaking landmark publication, #1 on the New York Times bestseller list, Signature in the Cell, followed by Darwin's Doubt, and then his most recent book, I think published it in 2021, Return of the God Hypothesis, which is really an overview of all the material in his previous book, except he pushes the theological implications of his science in this additional book, Return of the God Hypothesis. Now, we're going to watch a brief video by Stephen Meyer. There's no better spokesman than him. And then once we've seen that video, we'll just make some comments about what intelligent design is.
Chances are, if you've heard anything about intelligent design, you've heard that it's a faith-based, not a science-based idea. Or maybe you've even heard it's religion masquerading as science. Is that true? Well, why don't you decide? According to evolutionary biologists, such as Richard Dawkins of Oxford University, living systems give the appearance of having been designed for a purpose. But that appearance is merely an illusion. Why? Well, according to Dawkins and his followers, wholly undirected processes such as natural selection and random mutations can produce the intricate design-like structures in living systems. In their view, natural selection can mimic the powers of a designing intelligence without being guided or directed in any way. In contrast, the proponents of intelligent design argue that there are telltale features of living systems and the universe that are best explained by a designing intelligence. So what telltale signs of intelligence are we talking about? There are many, but let's focus here on just one: the digital code stored in the DNA molecule. In 1953, James Watson and Francis Crick mapped out the structure of the DNA molecule. Along the interior of their famed double helix, they discovered a 4-character code at work. They soon realized that sequences of precisely positioned chemicals, called nucleotide bases, store and transmit the assembly instructions, the information, for building the crucial protein molecules that cells need to survive. No protein molecules, no life. Crick later proposed that the chemical constituents in DNA function like letters in a written language or digital symbols in a computer code. Just as well-functioning computer code depends upon precise sequences of zeros and ones, so too does the function of the DNA molecule depend upon the specific arrangement of chemical bases along the spine of the double helix. Famed biotech specialist Leroy Hood describes the information stored in DNA as digital code. Even Richard Dawkins has acknowledged the machine code of the genes is uncannily computer-like. But where did this information, this digital code, come from? Today, this question lies at the heart of a great scientific mystery, the mystery of the origin of life. Building a living cell requires many proteins. and building proteins requires genetic information in DNA or some other equivalent molecule. Yet to date, no theory of undirected chemical evolution can explain the origin of the digital information needed to build the first living cell from simpler, non-living chemicals. In other words, the problem of getting life from non-life. Why is this a problem? There is simply too much information in the cell to be explained by chance alone. The probability of generating a section of DNA code capable of building just one functional protein by chance is vanishingly small, even taking into account the multi-billion-year history of the universe. And even the simplest living cells require hundreds of proteins. Thus, the given enough time, anything is possible argument no longer works. Origin of life researchers agree. The chance hypothesis has failed. Chemistry doesn't help us either. Unlike basic chemical compounds, like a crystal of salt, the chemical letters in the DNA message do not arrange themselves as a result of mutual attraction. Saying otherwise would be like saying that the message in a newspaper headline could spontaneously emerge because of the way ink sticks to paper. Clearly, something else is at work. In this case, a newspaper editor. Yet proponents of intelligent design do not argue for the theory because all these other theories, chance, chemical laws, or some combination, have failed. Instead, they argue for intelligent design because our uniform and repeated experience, the basis of all scientific reasoning, shows that systems with digital information invariably arise from intelligence. DNA functions like a software program. We know from experience that software comes from programmers. We know that information, whether inscribed in hieroglyphics, written in a book, or encoded in a radio signal, always arises from an intelligent source. So the discovery of information at the foundation of life in even the simplest living cells provides strong grounds for inferring that a designing intelligence played a role in the origin of life. So contrary to what you may have heard, intelligent design is not based on religion, but on scientific discoveries. It is also based on the same method of scientific reasoning that Charles Darwin used, a method that relies on our uniform experience of cause and effect to guide our theories about what happened in the past. You may still wish to dismiss the theory of intelligent design. You're free to believe whatever you like, but you'll have a hard time doing so based on the science. I'm Stephen Meyer of the Discovery Institute and author of Signature in the Cell for Prager University.
So there you go. That's that Stephen Meyer video. I think is a great introduction. So let's just investigate this question a little bit more. Let's talk about what intelligent design is. We need to just kind of work on that a little bit. So here's a document for you to look at. Since the publication of Darwin's On the Origin of Species in 1859, the appearance of design in living things has been understood by many biologists as to be a powerfully suggestive illusion. But an illusion nevertheless. That is to say, biological evolution is a completely naturalistic process that only mimics the power of a designing intelligence. For example, Francisco Ayala writes, Darwin's theory of natural selection accounts for the design of organisms and for their wondrous diversity as a result of natural processes, a process that is creative. Interesting here, that is creative, although not conscious. So that is to say, the process is naturalistic, blind, unguided, not the result of conscious choices by any sort of intelligence. Richard Dawkins puts it even more bluntly, saying that biology is, quote, the study of complicated things that give the appearance of having been designed for a purpose. Francis Crick wrote, biologists must constantly keep in mind that what they see was not designed, but rather evolved. And so when you look at all of these quotations together, it suggests that biologists must remind themselves every day that although life appears to be designed, it is not, because there are no gods, no spirits, no ghosts, or purpose operating in the universe. Now, the fancy word for that philosophy or ideology is ontological naturalism. We've looked at the word naturalism. Ontological means the philosophy of being, nature, what makes something what it is, ontology. Now, beyond ontological naturalism, the next point says that science must also explain phenomena in terms of known natural laws and causes, or by chance. Therefore, scientists are taught to resist the impulse to see and acknowledge design because the process of evolution is non-intelligent, purposeless, blind, and only happens through naturalistic means. The fancy term for that is methodological naturalism. That is, the way that you do science must entail the presupposition that there cannot be any supernatural agency, mind, at work. It all has to be explained in terms of processes recognized within the materialistic universe. So here's a question. Do you believe in intelligent design? Well, let's define our terms. In one sense, all Christians must believe, or are obliged to believe, that life is the product of intelligent design. Why? Because ultimately, all design must come from an intelligent creator. The Bible affirms that life is created by God. But notice that the question has intelligent design uncapitalized. And that is because the term uncapitalized refers to the general concept of life being the result of intelligent design. But as I've already said, we must be careful to define our terms. Intelligent design, that is a capital I, capital D, refers to the specific scientific approach, method to questions of biological evolution and origin of life. So again, by defining our terms, we avoid this confusion that can creep in if someone asks you, well, do you believe in intelligent design? Well, the proper response is, well, what do you mean by intelligent design? Now, here's a simple one-sentence definition of intelligent design, hyphenate, or capitalized. The study of patterns in nature that are best explained as the product of intelligence. That's as stripped down and as simple as we can make it. The study of patterns in nature that are best explained as the product of intelligence. So ID is a theory of justifiable design inference or warranted design inference. So what do we mean by inference? Well, we mean inferring or inference as reaching a conclusion based upon evidence and reasoning. It's what we do every day of our lives. We infer, we reach conclusions based on the evidence and based upon the use of reason. So here are some examples of justifiable inference starring some reset students. Let's say that Kelly finds that a student's paper includes wholesale sections taken from Wikipedia. She would be able to justifiably infer that it is not the result of chance, but rather a case of deliberate plagiarism. Or what if Noelle is hiking in the Nevadan desert and she enters a cave and stumbles upon what appears to be an ancient earthenware vessel, a human artifact as it were? She could reliably or reasonably infer that it wasn't produced by shifting sands and erosion. And what if Linda, walking the beach in Daytona, comes upon a magnificent, elaborate sandcastle? She could safely infer that the sandcastle isn't the result of mere wind and waves. Justifiable inferences. So when we look at these inferences in terms of intelligent design, we say that design in nature can be detected scientifically. And so ID proponents argue that key features of the natural world are best explained by the influence of design at some stage in the distant past. That is, there's evidence of intelligence that provides design. And so as a Christian, I am obligated to believe that God, the supreme intelligent mind, is behind the creation of the universe and the origin of life and the evolution of life. And I'm quite intrigued with the scientific theory of ID as the best explanation for the origin and evolution of life. And so we need to say that ID is not an inference to theism. In fact, it's not an inference to any kind of God necessarily. It is an inference to intelligence. Now, the source of that intelligence is debatable. We can do a conceptual analysis the same way we did with our lectures on fine-tuning of the universe and say, well, what would be the qualities, the characteristics, the properties of this intelligence? And we could conclude that the Christian God lines up very, very well with the kind of designing influence that would be necessary. And so that's a brief introduction to the concept of intelligent design. Let's move on to our second topic, the dazzling complexity of the cell. So you've all seen the iconic DNA structure, you know, the double the ladder twisted you know, structure, you know, I'm trying to think of how most people think of it. They probably think of the DNA structure as the iconic twisting ladder. That's the best way to perhaps put it. This is really a fascinating thing because we didn't know anything about this for a very long period of time. And yet, in 1953, Francis Crick and James Watson walked into the Eagle Lab in Cambridge and declared to all of those that were there that they had co-discovered the secret code. In fact, they announced that they had discovered the secret of life. They had discovered the three-dimensional double helix of deoxyribonucleic acid, the DNA molecule. They had unlocked the genetic code. They had found that DNA has information-bearing properties. Now, during the 70 years since Crick and Watson's discovery, scientists have been pushing back the frontiers of biochemistry and information technology. In fact, over these 7 years, it has blown our minds how the understanding of the cell has increased with the coming of the digital age and our understanding of biological solutions, or systems, I should say. So let's have a little closer look at the structure of DNA. This is kind of a typical thing that you might see in a high school level biology course, the chemical structure of DNA. Of course, this is the double helix structure we refer to, and this twisting ladder, which is so iconic. And then you have here the sugar phosphate backbone. The backbone is the rigid structure that supports these nucleotide bases, which are identified as A, T, G, and C. And these nucleotide bases are, when put in combination or sequence, form a DNA code. And the rest of this information just talks about how these strands are held together. We're not really that interested in this, but it's this next section down, which I find quite fascinating, in that it talks about the structures and the processes within the cell that bring DNA into the production of proteins, from DNA to proteins. So we know about the nucleotide basis. Well, as I've mentioned, the genetic code is the information contained in the gene, or that section of DNA that tell a cell how to make a specific protein. And these 4 nucleotide bases combine to form sequences. Now, sequence means order. So you have combinations of A, C, T, T, G, C, and so on and so forth. And some of these sequences can be very, very long. You know, a simple protein could have you know, a code that's indicated by 150 combinations or sequences or more. And so these are very, very important because they contain the code for the production of proteins. And of course, proteins are the large complex molecules that make up that are made up of amino acids. And these proteins are the building blocks of life. Now you'll notice it says from DNA to proteins. So we know what DNA is. You'll notice that it says DNA is then transcribed. There's a process called transcription. Now, when we think of transcribing, you might think of writing down. Yeah, or recording. And that's it exactly. So something is transcribed, it's copied. You might transcribe something you hear on a a video log or an audio recording. So you transcribe it, you write it down. Well, RNA, now RNA is ribonucleic acid, is also very important molecule that has the ability to store genetic information. So the RNA has the task of copying the DNA. So the RNA copies and pastes the the information encoded in the DNA. Now, why does it do that? Because the RNA is a messenger RNA. That is, it takes the information that has been copied and pasted to it, and it translates it, or it puts it into operation, or it initiates a function that is really, really necessary in order to produce the proteins. So I think you're getting the idea here. So the messenger RNA is the molecule that brings the recipe, the instructions that tells the cells what to do in making the proteins using its own information. So the transcription is the copying and the pasting. So I have here an analogy from personal computing. I mean, I am no computer whiz, but I certainly I use a PC. So from personal computing, if I want to copy something, for example, a URL, I just right click on my mouse and I copy, and then I go to my web browser and I maybe paste it into the search function. But I have to do more than just copy and paste, don't I? I have to initiate. I have to hit the enter. I have to make that sequence active, and then, of course, magically, up on my screen appears the website that I had been searching for. So this is a kind of a simple but maybe handy way of thinking about how RNA operates and how the cell produces the proteins necessary for life. So the building blocks of life are proteins, and the building blocks of proteins are amino acids, and the code is supplied to the DNA via messenger RNA. Um, just as an aside, in the age of COVID, we've all heard about the messenger RNA technology that is used for some of the COVID vaccines. Of course, we have this virus, um, SRCR, COVID-2 virus, and it's been devastating. And we've learned a little bit more about messenger RNA because the technology has been produced to use messenger RNA as a way of helping the immune system prepare itself for an attack from the COVID virus. So in reading a little bit about this, I learned that basically how it works is that scientists are able to make a copy, a genetically engineered copy of the protein spike of the virus. And that protein spike is when the virus gets into the body and invades it plugs into the cell, and then via that spike it's able to invade the defenses of the human body. So that's a protein spike then is copied, synthesized, and then it's introduced into the body through the COVID vaccine. So once it's been injected into the system, the immune system then is triggered because the messenger RNA tells the cell that protein should be or that spike protein should be protected against, and then the immune system mounts a defense. And again, as a non-scientist, I'm putting this as simply as I can. It's the immune system is triggered to produce an immune response, alerting it that this is a pathogen, something which is of a danger. And so, in a way, the body immune system is trained to recognize the real virus protein spike that should be encountered in the body. So it's kind of targeting the SARS-CoV virus. It's triggering an immune response, and then teaching the immune system what to do should the real virus make its way into the body. But it's interesting that it's mRNA technology, and the thing that I find fascinating about that is that scientists say we just can't do any better than the genius and the superiority of what the human body is able to do. And so what they basically do is they get the body to do the heavy work, the immune system to do the heavy work, and it's a pretty amazing thing. So that's kind of a little bit more information on the incredible complexity of the human cell. Now, this has kind of gotten up close and personal for me because a couple of years ago, I had my DNA tested, and one of these sites that you can go and you do a swab and they send you the information. And I actually went to the site that I use, which is called Living DNA, and I found the information about my 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 DNA, and it's in this file here. Let me see if I can do this. Hopefully you can see this. So you can see it's got a genotype. I think I'm going to stop this because I'm not quite certain that you're seeing just what I want you to see. Let's try. No, that's not it either. My apologies. Let's try this one more time. I've got so many documents open on my computer. Yeah, here it is. Okay, so this was done in 2017, so a few years back, and this is the file of my genotype. So the genome, the human genome, is the sum totality of all the DNA that is in the human genome. All right. But the genotype is specific to me. So this is my genotype. And this is a simple text document. And you can see here that the headings are labeled RSID, which is kind of like a marker or a location, okay, on a chromosome. And just like in a hard drive, there would be a way in which computer experts would be able to target a certain place on the disk, that stores information. And in the same way, this is a particular place on the human chromosome, and we've got 22 of them, as you know. So there's a location, the position in that location, and then we've got the genotype information here. And you can see you've got the TT, AA, GG, and so on and so forth. Now you'll notice down this column here labeled chromosome, as we scroll through, you'll see that each one of these positions is on the first chromosome, and these are all identified SNPs or SNPs, which are specific information about me as a person. All right, so they are very much a snapshot of me, David Beasley. So as we scroll down, I'm scrolling quickly now, we can go through the first chromosome, and you can tell I'm about 1/10 of the way down this document. So I'm going to speed it up really, really, really fast. Now we're at the second chromosome, moving on the third, the fourth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th, 11. We can go even faster. Each of these is a picture of me. And then we come to the ends around chromosome 22, and on it goes. So the point is that this is a this is an incredible amount of information that is recorded in this little file, which is taken from my DNA. It's vast, and as I've been told, I read that the sum total of DNA in my genotype can be thought of as a book with 3 billion base pairs of DNA. So now you've seen David Beasley's designer genes. Quite incredible. And so that's what leads Stephen Meyer to ask this question, which he did in the video. He terms it the DNA enigma. What is the enigma? What is the great unsolved mystery? Well, it's the mystery. What is the source of this incredible information? The discovery of DNA and genetics raises troubling questions about the creative power of evolutionary natural selection and mutation. That's the mystery. Many biologists now question whether unguided Darwinian mechanisms can really produce major innovations in biological form. I should show you something. I have a book here. This is my PhD thesis, my doctoral thesis, which I completed in 1999. And what's really, really interesting is that to fulfill the demands of my doctoral program, I was required to make an original contribution to the field, to the body of knowledge in my field of study. In other words, I had to conduct research and create new information. Yeah, conduct research, create new information. So this is it. It's about, well, I think there's 240 pages in this thing. And I'm going to let you in on a secret. I really didn't write the dissertation. It was written by my cat, Zach. Now, Zach used to walk across my computer keyboard. And one evening, I left my word processor on, got up, went to bed. And when I returned in the morning, I discovered that Zach had characteristically walked across the keyboard and had depressed the keys and had left, left some data some information in a Word document, a jumble of letters. But as I looked through it, I laughed that I did identify a few recognizable words, if, and, but, for example. So I saved the document and titled it Dissertation. And I left it open every night on my computer. And sure enough, against all odds, when I returned each morning, Zach had added to the dissertation more information. And it just kept growing. It just kept evolving. Sure, little errors crept in due to his random stepping on the keys. But amazingly, over a period of a year, 2 years, three, actually, it took about 5 years. Over a period of 5 years, Zach produced the dissertation that got me my doctoral degree. Now, I ask you, is this explanation plausible? Is it believable? Well, of course not. It's so improbable. It's virtually impossible. It didn't happen that way. I wrote the dissertation, not my feline friend. Now, naturalistic evolutionists would insist that genetic information magically appeared out of nowhere through a random, unguided, blind, purposeless process, not the product of an intelligent mind. So they say it appeared, and they expect you to believe it, just like they would expect you to believe that Zach should be awarded a doctoral degree. Well, not everybody believes it. And to demonstrate this, I'm going to show you a document. And I'm actually, when I show you this document, I'm going to begin from the bottom up, okay? And there's a purpose in doing that, because I want to show you the list and then show you the title when we get to the top. So here we go at the bottom. We've got a guy here, Paul Clue. He's got a PhD in health sciences from Northwestern University. And this is a list of scientists and doctors. Each minimal requirement is a PhD or an MD in their field of study. And as we go up, we're scrolling through the list. We go up and up and up and up and up, name after name after name. We're not there yet. These are all people who are signatories of this particular document. So let's go up. Let's zoom right to the top and find out what it is. This is a scientific dissent from Darwinism. And it says, we are skeptical of claims for the ability of random mutation and natural selection to account for the complexity of life. Careful examination of the evidence for Darwinian theory should be encouraged. This was last updated in May 2021. We have, I think, 1,200 to 1,500 people who have gone on record as saying, we're not satisfied that atheistic Darwinism provides the answers we're looking for. And so with that, I think we'll conclude this first half. We'll pick it up and finish up next time. Thank you.